Nadim, tell me, what's your take on all this? What is going on right now?
Clearly, the news are very distressing, and what is needed at this point is a lot more transparency from the Israeli authorities about what happened, because they've imposed the military censor has imposed a ban on the information. We don't know how many people have been wounded, what happened to them, how many have been killed, and that's clearly unacceptable. We know that this wasn't the coming. That would have given the Israelis plenty of time to think of ways not to injure these people. So this is very disconcerting, and we need at this stage more clarity. People have a right to know what happened to the people on the ship.
What type of reaction are you expecting? You're in Beirut, first of all, starting from the Middle East and looking throughout the world. Do you think that we will have a serious reaction? Do you think that people will take to the streets? Or how do you see, as far as the type of reaction that possibly can come about because of this situation, Nadim?
It's hard. I'm not a political analyst, so I'm not sure what kind of reaction will happen, how people will react to it. So it's a bit hard for me to tell. It's also early. We don't know enough what happened. I think you'll have to talk to some of the people that work more on political mobilization.
So Nadim, as a political,
I think what is essential at this stage is to get more information that has to be clear, verifiable, and independent inquiries into the information to understand what happened and to ensure that those people who've been wounded get the proper treatment.
As a humanitarian activist, Nadim, are you surprised that this attack took place in this way?
Let me start by the general position. It's been our position at Human Rights Watch that the continuing blockade has been harming the civilians, and not just our position, it's the position of the UN, and clearly what's going into Gaza is not sufficient for the civilian population. So that's clearly a very important issue that has to be highlighted. I am surprised about the casualties. I'll be honest. Everyone knew, and the Israelis said they were going to sort of stop the ships, and they had done it in the past. And there was a ship coming from Beirut that tried to reach Gaza and had been stopped last year. So in a way, the Israelis trying to stop it and board the ships is not that surprising because they announced that they would do it. What is really surprising and shocking is the number of casualties that are being reported. And that is why it is really important at this stage to really understand what happened. There were a lot of cameras on board. I'm sure the Israelis have also filmed. So there has to be a way to reconstitute exactly what happened. And this investigation should lead to further action, if once we actually have a bit more detail. But I think at this point what's important is to know the names of anyone who's been injured or anyone who's been killed, because I know a lot of people are very worried at this stage.
Yes, one name that we have gotten so far from our correspondent, Yusuf Al-Halou in Gaza, is that the head of the Islamic movement in Israel, Sheikh Raid Saleh, has been killed. Now that is one name that so far it seems that unfortunately we have been able to confirm. Okay, well, thank you, Nadim. I'm going to switch over to Istanbul. We have Press TV's Jody Sabral standing by. Jody, tell us the latest there from Turkey. Jody, can you hear me?
It's quite noisy here, so I'm not sure if I can hear your question, but I'll just give you an update from Turkey. I'm standing outside the Israeli consulate, and there are hundreds of people here gathered in protest and in prayer for the news that from the Israeli television is reporting that at least 16 people have been killed and hundreds of protesters have been here overnight. They gathered here at around 12 o'clock last night as soon as we heard that the Israeli military were following the convoy in the Mediterranean Sea. It's quite calm here now, although it's quite noisy, as you can probably hear. But it wasn't quite the same earlier this morning. If I can just get my cameraman to direct the picture to the building that houses the Israeli consulate. At about 5 a.m. this morning, protesters stormed the consulate building. It was an angry reaction to the news that there were deaths on board the convoy, and you can see that the glass has been broken. There are police now protecting the building, and this, as I said, happened at around 5 a.m. this morning. This was an angry reaction from the Turkish streets here towards the intervention by the Israeli military on the humanitarian aid convoy travelling to Gaza. Now there are hundreds of protesters here outside the embassy, outside the consulate. They are now planning to walk from here to march to a central meeting point in Istanbul, where other organisations, other civil organisations, other demonstrators are going to be joining them in protest and in prayer to show their anger towards the intervention by the Israeli military on the humanitarian aid convoy.
Jody, what's the latest on the official reaction out of Ankara?
Well, the latest from an official reaction is that the Turkish Foreign Ministry has summoned the Israeli envoy to Ankara. They have asked for a full explanation as to why the Israeli military took such an aggressive approach to this humanitarian aid convoy. Of course, all the people on this was a Turkish ship that the Israeli military intervened on and in fact apprehended. It was the largest ship in the mission. It held over 700 activists. As we know, the Israeli television reporting 16 people dead. We don't know the nationalities of those involved, the casualties. We don't know the nationalities yet, and of course if there are Turks involved there will be a very strong response from the Turkish government. They have come out and said now that they have condemned this action by the Israeli military, but of course the Prime Minister is out of the country right now. He's in South America on a diplomatic tour. We've heard now from a colleague of ours who's travelling with the Prime Minister that they are holding an emergency meeting over how to react to what's taken place in the Mediterranean in the early hours of this morning. But of course we're going to have to wait and see now. The Prime Minister, we believe, is going to be returning to Turkey immediately. He'll probably cut his trip short. And this is the situation at the moment from Turkey. Of course it's going to put immense pressure and strain on Turkish-Israeli relations that have been under pressure for some time now.
Okay, that's Press TV's Jody Sabral coming.